All right, we're going to talk about thoughtfully using AI in your end of year giving strategy. I hope you have a wonderful time with it. We have a lot of cool show and tell things today, and hopefully some things that will get you thinking. And we're going to dive right in. Feel free to ask questions in the Q&A or in the chat. I will do my best to follow them, but we have closing in on 1,000 people on the call, so I won't be following the chat entirely. Welcome to the most popular webinar in nonprofit fundraising by a huge margin. Very excited to have you all here. Before we get started, this is CFRE approved for 1.0 credits. So make a note at the end of the survey. At the end of the session, we will drop a survey in the chat as usual. Help me out there. Here's the agenda. We'll do some intros. We'll talk about some trends impacting the year end that are not about AI, but just as we start to filter in our strategy, right? Tactics come after strategy, not before. We're going to give you some need to know AI updates, including some really big stuff that happened this week. And then we'll talk about how to thoughtfully implement AI for end of year. As usual, the recordings and the slides will be sent around later today. As usual, someone's going to ask about it or multiple people will ask about it. So if you can just help me out in the chat, that would be truly excellent. All right, quick intros. My name is Patrick. Lucky to be the co-CEO and co-founder of FreeWill alongside my wonderful dear friend Jenny, who I got to see very recently, which was great. This is what I look like with a much bigger beard. Jenny's out in Seattle. I'm in Brooklyn, New York today. So it's a beautiful day in Brooklyn. We're hitting the very end of summer. It's pretty warm. And tomorrow, the rest of the week, will be full on fall. We are lucky to run FreeWill, which if you don't know, I don't know how you got here, but FreeWill is the #1 estate planning and plan giving solution in the United States, trusted by more than 2,300 leading nonprofits, including our friends at the American Diabetes Association, the United Way, the Komen, uh, Susan G. Komen, the SPLC, the Urban League, Greenpeace, as well as many much smaller organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, hospitals, museums, et cetera, featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, et cetera. We'll keep going. FreeWill team, a lot of the research you see, a lot of what you're seeing here is put together by folks that are not me, a team of more than 200 that's raised more than $13 billion for charity to date and over 6 centuries of combined fundraising experience. So we love the folks from FreeWill who are listening. Thank you so much for all the work you do. Hopefully many of you get to know them in person. Special shout out to my colleague Phoebe, who's on the call, who put an extra amount of work into this. All right, we're going to give away some books before we get started. Some of my favorite books. If you haven't read this, Joe says, can I slow down a little bit? I will slow down now that we're through the intros because now we're in the important stuff. First things first, a gift, one of my favorite books, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It is awesome. Kelly says she loved it. Maggie says it's an amazing book. Emily says it's such a good book. Ashley says this book was awesome. Alicia says this book is one of the best of all times. Great. Michelle says never heard of it. Great. Okay, we got some mixed reviews here. It is an outstanding book. Why do we send it? It's about technology. It's about people that invent technology. I really appreciated it because there's an interesting co-founder dynamic. And so I think those of you that know the book, I think this dynamic is more interesting than my co-founder and I, but it's really, really good. So we will send it to 20 people as a gift. And if not, you can always pick it up at your local bookstore. Also, one other book recommendation while we're on it, just things on my desk. I don't know if anyone's ever read this. It's called The Angle of Repose, written in 1971. It won a Pulitzer Prize. I picked it up for my book club, and it's great. Halfway through, it's about 620 pages. It's very good. So I don't know if anyone else has ever read The Angle of Repose. Fascinating multi-generational book. So Ellis is one of the greatest books of all time. So great. Make a note in the survey again at the end of the chat, right end of the session, if you'd like a chance to get a copy. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about how your week is going. Big bounce back. We're happy again. Great news overall. So good to see that as well as we roll into fall. A little bit less confident about hitting our goals than last week, but just noting that last week was the highest we've seen in years. So overall, very positive overall in terms of hitting our goals. Very, very exciting for us. Why do we even talk about AI? We're going to talk for a moment about AI, then we're going to talk about some trends, then we're going to go back to AI, and then we're going to talk about what to do about it. And I will try to slow my speaking down just a little bit for everybody. All right, why is this working so well? Well, first of all, what we've seen is one of the rare use cases or the rare technologies that is increasing productivity and happiness, right? So people are happier and they're getting more done, which is really interesting. Here's some research from our friends at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And oops, let's go back here. Nonprofit work in particular, I think is really interesting here. And fundraising work is a particularly great case for leveraging AI. Most of what we do is communication. Most of it is written, right? So the MIT research shows that it increases the productivity and the quality of the work and helps us learn new skills. So really a win-win-win. It also helps us create better content in less time and we enjoy it more, right? So that tends to be really good. Also, shout out to Phoebe, who's dropped what you might have already guessed, our AI created images in a lot of this. So here you have a lizard wizard. I didn't realize that rhymed until we just said that now. So very clever from Phoebe. Great pictures. So how does AI fit into our role as a fundraiser? First, it ends up really fundamentally changing the relationship with work that a lot of us have. Now, this has been true with previous technologies, right? The phone, the internet, the personal computer, but we're seeing increased productivity and happiness. I'm just going to say this again. According to HP's Hewlett Packard's 2024 Work Relationship Index, 73% of workers who use AI feel that it makes their job easier. 6 in 10, this is really important, plays a key role in improving their work-life balance. This matters a lot in our sector where work-life balance isn't always the best. Surveys show that workers who use AI are 11 points happier at work than their colleagues who don't. So this is really interesting, and we'll come back to this in a moment, but it's a really interesting divide happening. Intentional AI usage is still a work in progress. So most large nonprofits report that they're exploring AI, but only 24% have a formal strategy. A quarter of nonprofits say they're making a concerted effort to begin using AI. 77% of organizations expect to use AI within 5 years, but only 19% feel confident they're currently using technology in advanced ways. So you have this divide between what everyone's expecting and where they are now. Smaller nonprofits may see the biggest gains from AI, but larger organizations are adopting it twice as quickly. Now, this is a really interesting dynamic. We're going to talk about this in a moment, but I think you're seeing this sort of divide where what's happening is a lot of the adoption is being led by individuals as opposed to at the organization level. And you're going to see it um, in a rapidly evolving technology landscape. What you're having is a lot of people trying different things, and then the organization latching on to the things that are working best. This is actually not a bad dynamic. So interesting to see here across the board. But why is this happening so fast? I mean, it is extremely important for us to understand that AI is the fastest adopted technology in the history of everything, right? In the history of the entire world. Just to give you an idea, we're going to look at the US for a moment, just to give you a sense of how quickly this happens, right? But if you get a sense of how long it took half of Americans from the first person with a landline to how long till half, about 70 years, right? 70 years from the first people having telephones to half of America using telephones. Personal computers, about 19 years. Cell phones, about 17 years, right? From the first cell phones to half of Americans using it. Internet, 6 years. Smartphones, 5 years. Generative AI, 1.5 years, right? So, I mean, think about this. This is basically 30 times faster than the adoption of the telephone, right? And significantly faster than smartphones even. Pretty dramatic. Do we already use AI, some form of AI in your work? So what you see here is just incredibly rapid growth, right? Back from March of 2023, when we said 11% of you, that was the first time we did anything on AI, to a 3x between March and June, and July, excuse me, of 23, gradual growth, doubling again by October 2024, and now leveling out a little bit. So this is really interesting. We've hit about 3 quarters, and it seems like there's a quarter of people that just say, oh, it's not for me, but this really rapid growth across the board. Now, remember how few nonprofits have a formal policy, but we're seeing here is a lot of adoption across the board because, again, we need it. We're understaffed, undertrained, under-resourced, too many things to do with too little time. And so this is what you're seeing is being driven from the grassroots, right, by the employees. It's really interesting as well. Mary says the speed thing is a natural progression, though. The next tech will be adopted even faster. Mary, I think that's a great point. I think as we see new technologies. Another way to say this is the world is ever changing faster and technology is accelerating, not just increasing linearly, right? Have you ever used an AI chatbot in your personal life? So at personal life, you actually see this big jump here. And now we're up to 85% of people that have used it personally. So there's about a 10% delta between folks who haven't used it who have used it in their personal life, but not in their professional life. So that's pretty interesting. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your proficiency with AI? The average is 2.7, but you see a real peak in the middle here. So a lot of people say, I'm not an expert, but I sort of know what I'm doing and I'm making some real progress here and I'm having a lot of value out of it. So that's interesting to see. So let's chat quickly about as we head into end of year, and we talk about this a little bit, but it's really important for us to get our heads around what is happening in nonprofit giving and what does that mean for the next roughly what, 2 2/3 months? I mean, we're almost at the end of the year. It's pretty wild how quickly that's come. So first is we have a very strong fundraising backdrop. Nonprofits raised almost $600 billion in 2024, the second highest year on record. Individual giving in particular grew 8.2%, driven by a resilient economy and donor generosity. So really very impressive. This momentum sets the stage for another strong year end. Now, what else is happening? Stock market, highly correlated to growth in charitable giving. Markets remain very favorable. The S&P 500 is up 18% year over year, meaning the last 12 months, and doubled over the past 5 years. So very serious growth. We remember, we know that appreciated assets are the best thing to give in many cases, and there's a lot more appreciated assets going around. Crypto markets, much less important than the stock market, just to name it. We want to let you know about them, but much less important. One of the funny things, by the way, crypto up 29% year to date for Bitcoin, 34%. Ethereum is the most donated cryptocurrency in the United States. Now, one of the things I find really funny here is that Bitcoin's at an all-time high, but the news sort of stopped writing about crypto. Why is that? I believe that it's because all of the reporters who were assigned to write about crypto 3 years ago are now assigned to write about AI. And so you just get a lot less crypto news in the mainstream media, which is really interesting. Strong markets boost stock, donor advised fund, and qualified charitable distributions, especially, right? And so, as well as all other cash gifts, but especially these asset-based gifts, DAFs, QCDs, stocks. So year end is an especially promising time for non-cash gifts. We're not going to talk so much about non-cash gifts this time, but lock that in your brain as you start to think about your own strategy. Also, I just want to make a note on these AI images. Those of you that have been watching these for a while realize that, oh wow, suddenly the writing in the images have gotten a lot better, right? And there aren't as many sort of weird hands and stuff. I mean, it's very impressive how quickly this has gotten to be excellent. Trend three, this is a really important point. The donor base in America of most nonprofits is aging. 2025 marks the peak of Peak 65, a 4 year period that began in 2023 and runs through 2027. This is the most retirements that will ever happen in the United States for ever in the past and for decades to come in the future. Half of Americans entering Peak 65 have already retired, according to the 2024 research by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. This is particularly critical for orgs with a donor base that skews older. Now, we're not going to talk about this a lot, but if you don't have a great volunteer program, this is your moment, right? 65-year-olds who are retiring, who are healthy and able, right? Some of them might be great for helping to serve food at a food kitchen. Some of them might also be a great volunteer accountant for you, right? So there's a lot of opportunities here. And it's a really important moment because there's just going to be more volunteers than ever before. Bonus, tax law changes around the corner. So starting in 26, new tax rules could reduce deductions for high net worth donors and change incentive for others. Expect some donors to accelerate their giving in 2025 to maximize tax benefits. So in some cases, you're going to get 2 years of giving upfront this year. It's pretty exciting across the board. Development teams should prepare for conversations about giving now versus later for donors curious about the savviest ways to give. When we ask you, how true is the following statement? I find myself significantly busier during end of year compared to other times of the year. 9% say not true. Don't know who those people are. 55% say somewhat true, and 35% say completely true, right? So you end up with this really significant increase in overall work. And so AI is a particularly helpful tool at this time in order to get our act together. Let's talk about a couple of very important AI updates, right? So this is stuff not in fundraising, but just generally. So AI keeps getting significantly better. And what we understand is that roughly capacity doubles or sort of overall capabilities double every 7 months, which importantly, exponential growth really matters. That means every 14 months, they're 4 times better. And every 28 months, they are 16 times better, right? So pretty significant. Google expanded its AI features in search and built new tools into Pixel phones, offering real-time help and tailored recommendations. OpenAI launched GPT-5, which is much better at reasoning and accuracy, more trustworthy for research, more trustworthy for drafting, more trustworthy for analysis, better at sourcing Its sources, less hallucination. This is a really big deal. Anthropic rolled out a new model called Claude Opus 4.1. It's great at understanding text. It's great at understanding images or them together. And Claude Code, which can understand large sets of documents very quickly. Some of you don't know what Claude is. OpenAI is the parent company of ChatGPT. Anthropic is sort of the next in line, sort of the next best competitor, and Claude is their product. Think of it as Uber and Lyft, right? Lyft is smaller, but still pretty big. ChatGPT is Uber, Anthropic is Lyft, right? So I hope that helps. There are, of course, other tools as well. AI tools that we recommend for fundraisers and why we don't have any relationship with these tools, but I'm just letting you know about them. First of all, ChatGPT and Claude, right? These are the two biggies that people are using on a regular basis. Google Gemini is also great. Grok from X can be a little bit off the rails. I wouldn't use that in your nonprofit work. Um, ChatGPT, generally the best all-purpose AI tool. It can assist with image and video generation, drafts text within seconds, data analysis, and much more. $20 a month, right? Claude, their latest model, is better for writing and brainstorming, right? So it tends to be a little bit more human-like writing. It's especially useful for summarizing and analyzing very long or very complex documents. It has a larger context window. What does a context window mean? It's like how much can you put in there for it to sort of digest and make sense of? And it's just a little bit cheaper, but I wouldn't go based on price alone, right? So those are the two. That's sort of the either or. Why would you use one versus the other? Some of you will use both. Other tools that we think are really interesting. Again, no relationship here. Fireflies.ai. It is a note taker that a lot of you are using in your meetings. It can record, transcribe, and summarize your donor meetings. By the way, it does alert the donor that this is being recorded, right? So just know that it's a big legal compliant rule, right? You can't just record people in a lot of states without them knowing. There's a free version and paid subscriptions are about $10 a month. Google Notebook LM is an AI-powered research and content org tool that helps summarize information across various formats. There are actually some interesting ways to do this for fundraising. I'm going to show you one of them later, but it's pretty cool. Gamma, this is a newer tool that creates presentations, web pages, and docs to present ideas with AI. A lot of you make a lot of documents. We might see over time this becoming more of a great use case. Multiple languages available. Some of you are working in Canada where you've got to do everything in English and French. Some of you have a big Spanish language or a Hmong population or a Chinese population, whatever it may be, and maybe you don't speak those languages. You still probably want to have another set of eyes on it, but this is a great first start. Google Gemini, as we mentioned, is a competitor to Claude and ChatGPT, but it also is great at custom images, useful for visuals, and donor materials, right? So a lot of great tools. I mean, there's just a ton of effort and energy being put in right now to racing ahead here. Other tools, Suno. Those of you that like the theme music at the start of the call, that's all from Suno. Suno is a really interesting AI music tool. It turns written text into lyrics, or you can even use it to write the lyrics itself, right? So I don't write all those lyrics. I then say, I want a song about AI end of year that we can play on our webinar, and Sinclair wants it to be a boy band, so it's a boy band this week, right? And boom, 90 seconds later, we have what we have. And honestly, these songs are pretty good. I had this wild experience yesterday. I was driving back from the Catskills or on Sunday with some friends, and we were listening to the new Taylor Swift album. And we're like, this is okay. I don't know if other people have strong opinions, but I think Taylor Swift is quite talented and an incredible musician. I think the newest album is just so. So if you have other opinions, feel free to enter them in the chat. And I played a couple of the songs that we've been making for the webinar. Oh, these are really good, really good. So interesting to see. But anyway, check out Suno. There's a free version, by the way. And then we use a lot of credits. So I think I spend $8 a month on Suno. Sora 2, I'm going to show you some of this in a minute. This is so interesting. It's a newest text to video model. The videos are quite good. What is the most interesting thing about Sora? They have a new feature called Cameo, where you take your phone, you record a bunch of stuff of you saying some things, a couple of face angles, and then you can throw yourself in the scenes. So I'm going to show you that in a moment. But it's really interesting. And I think that right now there's not a ton of applications for it in nonprofit fundraising, but I think that by January, February, March, as we get longer context windows, there may be some really interesting ones. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. I think you'll find it really interesting. It's honestly a little weird and creepy, but I'll let you be the judge. And just so you have a sense of where this is going. I mean, the videos are getting much better. And then Grant Assistant, which by the way we do is sort of a part of FreeWill, but is the leading AI grant writing tool that can help you research, draft, and complete new grant proposals, as well as find new grant opportunities. So a lot of people doing grants, and if you have grant writing as part of your job, a lot of people are leaning on something like grant assistance. So it's very, very cool. All right, so I want to show you because these, I was sort of playing around with this over the weekend, and these blew me away. So I'm going to show you three, I think three examples of Sora 2. You all know what I look like, right? You can sort of see me on screen. And so what I did is in about 45 seconds, just sort of quickly uploaded that. And then in about another 10 seconds, just put in some prompts. Wanted to talk about different things around fundraising. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let's see if this works. Um, let's see. Let's see if, when we hit play, it share screen.
Out here on the Great Wall today, walking these ancient bricks, and it makes me think about how wealth is built, step by step, decision by decision. One of those smart decisions at the end of the year is giving appreciated stock directly to a nonprofit.
All right. So again, never went to the Great Wall of China, didn't write that, didn't record that. It doesn't, there's like a couple of things. I don't think my mom would think that looks like me, but it's pretty close, right? I don't think my forehead's that big, but only does 10-second clips. A little crazy. Let's do another one. Again, didn't go to China, didn't write that, didn't record that.
Out here, it's easy to see the big picture. And one of the smartest ways to help the causes you love is by giving appreciated stock, especially as the year wraps up. When you donate stock directly, you skip the capital gains tax.
Again, we only have 10 seconds, right? A little bit wild. One thing that's really interesting here with Sora is you can only do it of yourself, and or you can do it with your friends with explicit permission from them. So you can't just sort of deep fake anybody. This is really, really important. Kimber says that one does look a little bit next to me. And then in the spirit of asking for boy bands this week, screw it. Let's see what it means.
Out here on the Great Wall today, walking these.
Not that one. Let's try one. There we go.
Showed up, you stayed for the ride, learning how the code can help us raise for every cause that we pray.
All right, there you go. I don't know, that person, that boy band, funny, hilarious. I would say it looks more like me than it looks like you. It's not totally, I don't know. I did one more video that I didn't put in here that was sort of me running New York Marathon. But because it only had sort of head up, I was like, you make me look much heavier than I am. What's going on there? But anyway, super interesting, right? So let's sort of like wipe all that aside for a moment. Think about having, your executive director or your college mascot being able to sort of, quickly make videos for a particular donor. If you're a teacher, right? Or if you're a parent, throwing your kids in outer space and watching them like walk around Jupiter, that could be really cool as a great learning thing. I mean, really, really interesting. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So that Sora 2 has only been out for like 4 or 5 days. It's invite only, so people are getting access to it very slowly. I was lucky to get an early invite, but I wanted to show you that because I think this is another area where the world is going. Now, again, it's only 10-second clips right now, but Suno, the music used to be only short clips, and now obviously it's full songs. And as we get to 10, 30, 15, 20-minute video clips, I mean, you're just going to do astonishing things. And I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, and we'll get to Sophie in a second. But, we were talking, and we are like, there's so many books that we love that we wish had been made into a TV show or something else, but just never got the budget, or maybe it's too niche. And the idea that at some point, that author could take their whole book and turn it into a 20 episode show would be incredible. So there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff. Also, there's a whole bunch of things to be concerned about, right? So I don't want to diminish that, but I do think it's just sort of fascinating how that goes. All right. So one other tool is there's a tool that we made for free called Willie and Sophie. About 1 in every 5 nonprofit fundraisers has used it. Pretty cool. This is a tool that what does it do? It helps you. It's one of the first AI nonprofit fundraising tool. It generates content most relevant to you. Anyway, it's free, et cetera, et cetera. Those of you that are FreeWill partners, you have an even more advanced version of this we call William, right? Willie is the free version, William is the more advanced. But what does it do? Personalized fundraising emails, direct mail, donor thank you notes, permanent giving guide copy, excuse me. Compelling smart giving messages for end of year. We'll get back to this. This is really important and a lot more. Excuse me. You can give it a shot. It's at willie.freewill.com. I think if every single one of you clicks it right now, you might crash it, but it will be available all day and all week and all year. Sophie is for folks who are working on faith-based organizations, right? So houses of worship, 100% free. Right now, it's Christian denominations and main branches of Judaism. You can check that out. What does that do? Announcements, right, from the pulpit, bulletin inserts, ideas for sermons, Bible study questions, appeals for high holidays, e-newsletters, social media posts, and so much more. So go check that out. It's super interesting. Super interesting. All right. Enough. That was super fun. Let's talk about some tips for using AI this end of year that you can actually put into use. One, prep for donor meetings. Before your next major donor meeting, drop the donor's bio, giving history, or any major org updates. Pass call notes, right? If you're using Fireflies or something called Otter, which is very similar, into the AI tool of your choice. Make me a one-page brief of their top interests, suggest talking points, possible objections, right? This sort of, some of you have made this memo for an executive director or a board chair or something else, and then probably took you an hour, 2 hours, maybe less, maybe more. Do this for yourself, but it now takes seconds and really interesting. It'll generate a list of talking points you can review on the way to your meeting. By the way, very, very important, right? On GPT and Anthropic, there is a setting in your settings that says, do not train on my inputs. Make sure you have that, right? This is really, really, really important. So get on that. Some of you don't know that. The other thing you can do is many of you have ChatGPT on your phones. Again, it's a free download on apps. After you get in the car, a lot of you sort of, you go to a donor meeting and you get back in your car and you have to like remember everything, which is really hard. Or you got to like type up your little notes on your phone, but we're all very slow typing with our thumbs. So you can go to ChatGPT and say, okay, write up a memo. Here's all the things we talked about. And she's got a son who's just started at University of Chicago and he plays lacrosse, and make sure to ask about how the season went next time and whatever. And then you just sort of spit it out. And then you'll have this really good memo the next time you talk to them, right? Follow up next week, et cetera. You go back and you sort of download that and input in your stuff. It can be CRM ready and so on and so forth. This will save you a ton of time. It will also keep the pipeline moving. You are about to get super busy. What happens when you get busy? Things get dropped. What gets dropped? Follow-up notes to major donors. And you don't know about the gift you missed because we didn't do the right follow-through, right? So very, very exciting. 2, use AI to arm major gift officers with the best talking points around smart giving. So we know that shifting donors from cash giving to non-cash giving dramatically increases their gift sizes. Best way to hit your goals this year. But we hear, oh, I'm not confident, or my team's not confident about about talking about non-cash gifts. So you're leaving these massive gifts on the table just because you're a little scared. And I understand why. No judgment. You can use ChatGPT or you can use Willy to equip your teams with the best possible talking points to prep them for every major donor conversation and ask, right? So you don't have to be an expert, but you do have to do 2 minutes of reading before you go into that meeting, and then you can crush it. Tip 3, send the best thank you notes of your life. 90% of donors say a thank you email is the most important message they receive from a nonprofit. AI can draft warm, personalized thank you notes in a fraction of the time. It helps you send more notes, follow the 48-hour rule, free up time for meaningful one-on-one interactions. Make sure that every donor receives a timely thank you in December. This is really important, right? So it's December 13th and we get a big gift, but we're busy. No, get on that right away because maybe you'll get another gift before end of year, right? So this is the time when it's most important to be on your thank you notes, even though you're going to be the busiest and you're probably going to be least on them. Super, super, super important. Mary says, laugh out loud. Tip 3 is literally my job. Get on it, right? So be more like Mary. Example prompts. Ooh, why is that faded in? Oh boy, what happened here? Internet went down? All right, that's not good. Let's try this again. All right, let's try this. Here's an example prompt. I'm not going to read all of it because my voice is going, so I'm going to give you 1 second to read it. Borrow it. So we'll send you the slides afterwards. You can use this as well. And this is just an example, obviously, but great chance to do it. What makes it strong? Donor's name. We're making it personal. Gift type and amount. It adds specificity. Program supported. Shows relevance. Right? Tone. Guides the voice of the note. Impact of the gift. Connects or giving to a tangible outcome. This is the most important thing in thank you notes. My friend Josh, who was in the direct mail webinar earlier this month or last month, says, make your thank you notes an action movie. Thank you for your gift. It is being put to use right away. Saving otters, right? Right away, helping kids with debilitating diseases. Right away, teaching the next generation. It's being put to use right away, doing X, Y, or Z. Super important. I'm seeing a lot of you actually change your thank you notes and they're much better. And hopefully you're getting much better responses from that as well. It's a forward-looking message. Also, it reinforces the ongoing relationship. So do that as well. Here's a bonus tip, right? When I think about how people are not doing ChatGPT right, this is the thing that I think is a massive upgrade that not enough people are doing, but the people I talk to who do it swear by to never go back. So I'm going to show you this in a second. You should be voice typing the ChatGPT for maximum efficiency, right? Let's presume that you have a quiet space or whatever. So most people talk much faster than they can type. Some of you complain about how fast I talk. I get it. I'm sorry. But I can't type this fast. But the problem is, if I was just doing plain old voice to text, well, it doesn't look very good on paper. I don't know if any of you ever tried this. It's very hard to say, "Dear Mrs. Adams, comma, new line. Um, I hope you and your husband are having a great week." You sort of I end up in much longer sentences when I speak compared to when I write. And so it actually is a very different piece of language. Now, talking to ChatGPT or Claude, et cetera, to give it instructions allows you to have the speed of voice, but the professional level writing as if you sort of poured over every word. I use an app called Whisper Flow. Again, we don't have any relationship with them, but uh, it's sort of an even better voice to text. And there's a free version. I think I also spend um, $7 a month. I end up with a lot of these subscriptions. But I want to show you this very quickly. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. For me, there's a keyboard shortcut. I'm just going to hold it down. Okay, so I just got out of a meeting with Rose and John Henderson. They're thinking about making a QCD gift, and I want to write a thank you note. Their son, Michael, was there. I got to say hi to him briefly. He's going back to college in the fall. He's at UVA, and it was just such a great time. We had such a great conversation, and they're really excited about supporting our work at the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. In particular, they want to support pelicans. So just write a thank you note to them. Thanks. Right. And that's, I don't know, 18 seconds. So now we have all this. You can see how bad it looks, right? You wouldn't write that out. And now here's a warm personal thank you note, and we're done, right? So now we have basically a minute as well in a way that would take me a lot longer. So I don't think enough people are using that. And instead, what's happening is a lot of folks are just doing sort of slowly typing that out. But it might take me 2 minutes or a minute and a half to write that when in fact it takes me 15 seconds to do that. So consider trying that out this week, right? As you think about do that as well. This isn't just in ChatGPT voice note, right? So it's very simpler. This allows you to say what you want at light speed. And again, I use Whisper Flow. Tip 4, not enough people do this either, right? So a lot of people are using it to produce content, but as an in-house gift tutor or an in-house tutor on anything, ChatGPT can be amazing. So make non-cash gifts asks easier for everyone, little or no time. We're not just giving talking points, we're actually building an AI tutor just for your organization. You can build one for your team or separate tutors tailored to gift officers or volunteers, board members, or anyone in between. The tutor should focus on non-cash gifts like stock or QCDs or donor advised funds or crypto. Very easy, right? So this is a fascinating way to help especially your newer employees. It can help speed up onboarding and training. It can be accessible whenever you need them, right? So a lot of times someone might call you, ask you a question, but they're not available right now. The research that we've seen, obviously there's not a lot of research in sort of upskilling nonprofit fundraisers, but students with access to an AI tutor achieved more than twice the learning gains compared to those in an active learning classroom. Now, this is in addition, right? We're not replacing teachers. We're layering on more help, according to a Harvard study. They also achieve these gains in half the time. They improve student outcomes, but also enhance human tutor effectiveness, right? So human plus AI helping a kid, super helpful, right? And that's also true for you. It's not just true for your 12-year-old. Really, really interesting. A Stanford study found that students working with an AI-assisted tutors achieved mastery more often than those without AI. And this, again, sort of extrapolates to adults as well. So really interesting stuff. Tip 5, role play donor conversations. So we want to use AI to practice and fine-tune your asks ahead of a one-on-one donor meeting. ChatGPT is especially useful here because it responds in real time conversationally like a donor would. You can prompt the donor what you'd want. You can sort of prompt the profile through your prompt. And you might say something like, act as a longtime donor who only gives cash. I want to explain why they should consider giving a gift of stock and push back with concerns, right? You might say, pretend you're a 72-year-old retiree curious about QCDs, but you're worried it's too complicated. Act as a donor who has a DAF and is hesitant to use its year-end giving. Ask me questions and raise common objections so I can practice my responses, right? ChatGPT will give you natural objections and for you or your team to work through. This is very good in voice mode, right? So you can do it typing out, but you might want to do it in voice note mode, which gives you a chance to practice. And so I want to show you this for a minute. Let's see if we can do this. So I'm going to put it in voice mode, right? This little wavy thing on the side. I'm going to catch my breath for a second before we do this, but here we go. So thanks for your help. Listen, what I need you to do is I need you to role play like you're a donor. You're going to be 72. Your name is Etna. You've never given a qualified charitable distribution before, and you might be a little hesitant. So feel free to bring up some common objections. I am going to be Patrick. I'm going to be a gift officer at the Red Cross. I'm going to be visiting you because you have given us a lot of money in the past, year over year. And I'm going to be trying to convince you to shift giving from cash to a gift out of your IRA called a QCD. Are you ready?
Absolutely, Patrick. I'm ready to step into character. So here I am as Edna, 72 years old, little unsure about these QCDs and happy to throw in a few questions. Let's do it.
Great. Well, Edna, thanks so much for meeting with me today.
Oh, of course, Patrick. Happy to have you here. I've always been glad to support the Red Cross. I've just never really looked into this QCD thing before, so you'll have to bear with me if I have a few questions.
Yeah, well, thanks. I know we were going to meet about this. A lot of folks are actually, especially folks over 70, I'm not sure if you are, but folks over 70 a lot of them are shifting the way they're giving. This ends up being a lot more tax advantage, and I can talk to you about why that is and why other people are choosing to do so if you want to.
Well, sure. I'd definitely like to hear about it. I mean, I'm 72, so I guess I'm right in that category. But, I've always just written checks or given cash, and that's always felt pretty straightforward to me. So if there's a good reason to do it differently, I'm all ears.
Well, listen, you look much younger than 72, but thank you for letting me know that because this actually opens up a whole new opportunity here. So once you turn 70 and a half, which you have, you can give directly out of your IRA. And this, that money, the government says it's always going to be taxed. And the only way you can avoid taxes on that is by giving it to charity. So a lot of people like choose to really preserve their post-tax wealth. So you can spend it on whatever you want. And this way you can actually get a big tax savings by giving this directly to charity instead. I know you've already thought of giving other ways, and I thought this might allow you to have more impact at the same cost.
Well, that is certainly interesting, and I do appreciate the compliment. I do try to stay young at heart, but I guess my hesitation is just that I've never done it before, and it sounds a bit complicated. I mean, do I have to deal with a lot of paperwork, or is this going to be a big hassle for me?
Well, actually, it can be straightforward. There's a link on our website that can walk you through it at whatever your IRA custodian is, and so it should be pretty easy.
Well, that does sound a little more reassuring. I think if there's a way to make it simple, then I'm definitely open to it. Thanks for explaining it, Patrick.
That's great. So let's pause the role play here. Do you have any feedback, anything you think I could have done better?
Honestly, that was great. I think you were really clear and reassuring and just kind of addressed those hesitations pretty naturally. So I'd say you're on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing.
All right, great. I'm going to have to say goodbye to you for now. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Always happy to help out. And if you need to run through another role play or anything else, just let me know.
Amazing. All right, so we're going back to the slideshow. You can obviously, we did that pretty quickly. You could always give it a lot more context, right? So let's say you wanted, you're trying to talk to someone about building a building at your campus. You can give a lot more on the front end. But of course, we wanted to show that off to you relatively quickly. So really, really interesting. All right. So by the way, this is a great picture of a kangaroo carrying packages. Okay. Tip 6, write the best fundraising emails of your life with AI. Now, here's what I think a lot of people are doing wrong again. They're saying, hey, I want you to write this email and then write this email. Now, of course, you could get 5 or 6 versions of the same email in 3 seconds more. And yet we're so used to asking a person to do it that we think, oh, I can't possibly ask you for more than one email that, I'm probably not even going to use most of them. And so if you can generate 5 or 6 different emails, you can then choose the best ones, and you can, of course, edit it or even use it as a jumping off point to write your own. Or if you've already written your own email, a lot of you don't spend enough time on subject lines, which are, of course, incredibly important for fundraising. So maybe ask for 15 or 20 different subject lines. And what I like to do is say, make sure they're pretty different from each other, right? So that you have a lot of different avenues here. Many orgs are finding that their AI-generated emails actually outperform human-written emails for a bunch of good reasons. And of course, you can use this at willy.freewill.com free. You can also use it for ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it may be. But the core takeaway here is don't just ask for one, ask for 4 or 5 and pick the one you like best. Another bonus tip is a lot of people are becoming radically more productive in terms of applying for grants, right? And so what we're seeing here is at the low end, something like Claude over ChatGPT is more human-like. And at the high end, something like Grant Assistant.ai is purposely built for grant writing and sort of will hold all of your library of documents in tight security and help you find new opportunities. And so some really interesting avenues there. But grant writing is going to be one of the areas that is most changed. It doesn't take away the role of the grant writer. It just makes them more of an editor and allows them to really speed up their process. So this is really interesting as well. Bonus tip, right? Another thing here is that while people often use AI for content, and now they're using AI for tutoring, they often forget to use it as a strategy partner. So we want to use AI to map out a stewardship calendar with top-level messages for the whole year before you get exhausted from end-of-year time. And you might just say, look, here's all the stuff I know. Again, you can use that voice mode, right? So voice mode to say, here's all the things we're thinking. By the way, we've got a gala in the spring and school gets out in June and so on and so. So map me a whole calendar of stewardship. And by the way, I want to focus on these 3 areas. And then, if it says, here's a great idea, you might say, go expand on that idea. And so having it as a strategy partner can be really helpful. Now, there's a really interesting thing on voice mode that I want to talk to you about that I think is also underutilized. Now, you know that sort of phrase, like, I'm just thinking out loud, right? You say, oh, well, I'm just, why? I'm not really talking to you, I'm just thinking out loud. Our brains often learn better when we speak things out loud compared to just thinking them. And so, obviously, this is great to talk to you for colleagues, but having an AI in voice mode, rather than sort of take away creativity, often spurs creativity if you can have a conversation with it. So give that a shot. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Another bonus tip, this is because we promised you 5, and then we sort of had more and more things to cram in that we wanted to make sure you were aware of. Google's notebook feature is really interesting, and it allows you to turn any big report, any dense event into a podcast, right? Or even an explainer video. So this is really interesting. I'm going to look at an example. Let's look at an example before we go deeper on this. So our friends at the American Red Cross, I didn't ask your permission, I hope it's okay, but you have a publicly available annual report, and at some point you'll have a 2025 one. And so I thought, okay, this is it's a pretty long document. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. Not everybody learns by reading. Let's see what it sounds like to have a podcast about this.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to understanding those dense institutional reports. Today, we are really digging into the American Red Cross's fiscal year 2024 annual report.
Yeah, and this one's interesting. We're looking at how a 143-year-old humanitarian giant is trying to keep pace. We'll unpack how they're handling things like, extreme weather, major digital shifts, and something pretty critical right now, a big leadership change.
Right, that leadership piece jumps out immediately. Gail McGovern, who is CEO longer than anyone since Clara Barton, has stepped down from that top job, and the new president and CEO is Cliff Holtz, so a really significant transition.
It really sets the stage for everything else in the report. We'll be looking at the legacy there, the sheer scale of their disaster work, both here and overseas, then their core health.
All right, so I'm not going to play you the whole thing, but it's really interesting, right? And so you could share that with donors who are going to want to take it in a different way. By the way, if they read the report and listen to a podcast, it's going to really reinforce this. Now, another thing that you can do with Notebook, I'm going to show you this, is you can actually turn to one of those sort of old-fashioned explainer videos, not that old-fashioned, but like 4 or 5 years ago. Again, I'm going to put this on 1.5 speed, just so you get the gist a little faster.
When you hear American Red Cross, you probably think of 2 things, right? Disaster relief and blood drives. But there's so much more to it. Their latest annual report tells this incredible story of scale and really of profound human connection. So today, we're going to unpack the key moments and the big numbers from this past year to see what it really takes to power this massive humanitarian mission.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. You've got this institution that's been around for 143 years, and it's facing challenges that are frankly bigger and more complex than ever before. But the one thing that threads it all together, it's just human hope. So where do you even start with a year this big? Well, you have to start at the top, because for the Red Cross, fiscal year 2024 was defined by something historic, a major changing of the guard after a long, long time of really stable leadership. And those are the words of Gail McGovern, who...
So you see more.
member no matter where they are in the world 24/7. And get this, that's how many calls the Hero Care Network handled this year. Over 500,000 moments where a family was connected in a time of urgent need. Every single one of those calls represents a story, a crisis, and a moment of crucial support. So, we've seen the what, the where, and the who. But the big question is, how is all of this even possible? So let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine room, the money and the people that make this entire mission run. The total operating revenue was over 3.8.
Great. So you have a good sense of that. This is Google's Notebook LM, right? So you can check that out as well. An advanced version, by the way, if you have a little bit more time, is you could create a custom version of this for specific donors. You throw in the annual report, and then also a couple paragraphs about their impact, and just instruct the LLM to make a podcast for that donor. And that's pretty cool, right? That's something they haven't experienced before. All right, we're going to wrap up with a couple of quick things. Thank you all for bearing with us. Well, that's it, actually. So we are going to do a couple of questions, but there are a couple of things here as well. One thing, actually, there's a couple of questions here on environmental impact, and I just want to address that very quickly. One of the things that's really interesting here is there's a balance between AI getting sort of more powerful and more effective and actually becoming much more efficient. So a normal person using AI for a year is the equivalent of driving about 4 miles, right? So it doesn't mean there's no energy impact, but compared to most of the things we do, whether it's driving, whether it's eating, especially anyone that's eating meat, but even watching an hour of Netflix, you're going to get a lot more energy usage from those things than AI. Doesn't mean it's nothing, but it is really interesting. It's not necessarily the sort of overwhelming component we think it is. Now, the flip side here is on these data centers that tend to be centered in some communities, and not necessarily low-income communities, but all over the place, and they can be a real draw, right? So there's a real risk here on sort of overall power grids, but it's just something to be aware of and make your own decisions about it. I wanted to make sure you all knew about that. Okay, thank you, Phoebe. Phoebe has dropped in the chat a survey. We would love for you to fill this out, please. We are going to send a copy of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow to 20 people as a gift. Make a note in the survey if you'd like a chance to get a copy. Also, on Thursday, October 9th, which is in 2 days, 47 hours from now, we are going to walk you through AI grant writing and introduce Grant Assistant for those of you that want to join. I think this will be really interesting. It is also the case that in that survey, if you're interested in learning more and you want the opportunity to get sort of much more of an inside look at FreeWill's tools, and including things like pricing, which we sort of don't go through all these things in these very big settings. The opportunity for that is in the survey, and you can actually use it to book time directly. So you can say, oh, I really got an hour at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Can someone meet with me then? And we will do our best to do that. So go check that out. I think some of the tools are really cool, especially around non-cash giving and planned giving. So check that out as well. Final notes, please fill out the survey. Our next webinar is in 2 weeks, and we're gonna have a couple of really strong experts on best practices on local fundraising. What do we mean by this? We're going to focus on organizations where the entire donor base is in a local area, right? So it's a food bank or a homeless shelter or a hospital or a church or whatever, where you're really sort of in the neighborhood. And come check that out. We think it's gonna be really interesting. We have some great experts online, and it should be really fun. So come join that. I think we're gonna end a little bit early just to give folks a little bit of time back. If you haven't already, please hit up that survey. Also, we'd love for you to schedule time with us, but no pressure. And we'd love to also see you on Thursday for the grant assistance session. But thank you so much for all of this. We know that you all are so busy, especially now that we're already in the back quarter of the year. And so taking time to advance your career and advance the mission, it's so good. I was last week, 2 weeks ago, I got to keynote a conference in Tacoma, Washington on philanthropy. And first of all, it's super fun. But second of all, it was just so great to meet so many of you in person who are doing amazing work. And it was just a real joy. So we're going to keep putting in the effort to make your lives easier. And we appreciate you coming. And thank you all. So have a wonderful rest of your week, and talk to you all very soon.